Welcome to this week's edition of the Top 10 in 10, brought to you by The Watch Post. Each week, we count down 10 important stories shaping the prophetic landscape and break them down in 10 minutes or less. I'm your host, the Watchwoman at her post, also known as The Lookout. This is episode 102, covering the week ending Friday, March 27th, 2026. This week's headlines leaned heavily toward the themes of war, planetary unrest, and patterns emerging in the skies. But not every story fits neatly into one of those categories. We begin with number 10. One of the most controversial stories this week focused on the Church of England's installation of the first female Archbishop of Canterbury. 63-year-old Sarah Mullally was enthroned Wednesday during a historic ceremony at Canterbury Cathedral. Mullally now holds the church's highest clerical position and serves as the spiritual leader of the Anglican Communion. The controversy stems from the New Testament teachings of the Apostle Paul, who wrote that women were not to hold leadership or preaching positions in the church. For many, what ties this story to prophecy is the link to 1 Timothy 4 about doctrines of demons. The next two stories call attention to the heavens. Number 9 on the list took place Sunday into Monday, when a massive burst of charged particles from the sun impacted Earth, triggering a strong geomagnetic disturbance. As a result, auroras, the northern lights, were visible far beyond their usual range, with confirmed sightings as far south as Missouri and Kansas. Auroras are caused by solar particles interacting with Earth's magnetic field. When they appear at distances this far from the polar regions, it's a signal that something's wrong. In story number 8, the recent surge in large meteor fireball sightings has made scientists sit up and take notice. The American Meteor Society admitted Thursday that based on data going back to 2011, the first quarter of 2026 shows a notable increase in these events. Many of the meteors enter the atmosphere at steep, high-angle trajectories, which is outside the typical plane of our solar system. That, and the fact that many originated from a region directly opposite the sun, prompted the AMS to call them unusual and concede that the surge warrants further study. 2 meteorites recovered from Ohio and Germany were identified as rare eucrites, believed to originate from the asteroid 4 Vesta, but somehow they arrived from opposite directions. Bottom line, scientists admit the incidents have increased, the pattern is unusual, and they're unable to confirm the cause. The next few headlines speak to the intense groaning of our Earth. Number 7. A heat dome drove record-breaking temperatures in 14 U.S. states this week, with parts of Arizona and California reaching 112 degrees. A heat dome traps hot air over a region, drying the land and removing moisture from vegetation. During this same period, the National Interagency Fire Center reported 51 large active fires and raised the national preparedness level to PL2. While the heat dome didn't ignite these fires, it did present perfect conditions allowing them to spread. Keeping with the theme, the oceans keep getting hotter too. Number 6. The impacts of rising water temperatures were highlighted in several headlines this week. CNN reported that ocean warming is fueling a 64% rise in global humid heat waves. Warmer ocean water also fuels stronger storms and intensifies atmospheric rivers, which often result in devastating floods. Warming oceans also threaten our food supply. Hotter waters have been causing changes in fish migration, decreases in fish populations, and stunting the growth of fish in some species. Closely related is number 5. Scientists say Arctic sea ice has reached its annual peak at an alarming record-low winter maximum. It's tied for the lowest level ever recorded in the satellite era, at 5.5 million square miles of ice. That's roughly 525,000 square miles below average, an area nearly 2 the size of Texas.
This matters because the Arctic ice should be at its heaviest right now. Instead, it's entering melt season in a diminished state. When the ice weakens at the top of the world, the effects ripple outward through ecosystems and food systems around the world.
Number 4. The strongest earthquake so far this year struck near Tonga this past Tuesday. The magnitude 7.6 quake occurred at a depth of about 148 miles, with an epicenter about 95 miles west of Ne'eafu, near the Vava'u Island group. This lies within the highly active Ring of Fire region, where earthquake activity is both frequent and consequential. Because of the quake's depth, no tsunami warning was triggered. And now, with our last 3 stories this week, we move to the subject of war. In story number 3, the U.S. Army has raised the maximum enlistment age by 7 years, going from 35 to 42. The change applies to active duty recruits. It significantly expands the pool of eligible candidates. In recent years, the Army has struggled to meet its annual enlistment targets, facing a shrinking pool of qualified applicants. This adjustment is part of a broader effort to stabilize force levels alongside enlistment bonuses, preparatory programs, and other policy shifts. The move suggests that maintaining combat readiness is becoming more difficult and more important, not surprising given the state of the Middle East. Continuing the countdown, story number 2 takes us directly back to the Iran war. The conflict has now spread across more than a dozen countries, with the scope of activity touching Iraq, Lebanon, Yemen, and key Gulf states. The AP reported fresh strikes on Iranian nuclear-linked facilities and rising death and displacement totals across Iran, Lebanon, and Israel. An expeditionary force of American Marines arrived in the middle this weekend after the Houthis, an Iran-allied militant group, launched a missile attack on Israel. Global leaders are now saying that the conflict could continue for weeks because diplomatic efforts remain uncertain. And now for story number 1. Just 4 weeks into the conflict, the global economic impact of the Iran war is now measurable. According to Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development, the war has erased the global growth upgrade, with world GDP now seen slowing from 3.3% in 2025 to 2.9% in 2026, while G20 inflation for 2026 was revised up by 1.2 percentage points to 4.0%. In addition, $7 trillion has been wiped from global stock valuations during the quarter. Oil prices are up 70% and gas is up about 85%. Much of this is related to the stranglehold Iran is maintaining in the Strait of Hormuz, a critical waterway that 20% of the world's oil and gas must pass through. So the numbers are in. This war is no longer an isolated regional conflict. It has now become systemic. That's it for this week's edition of the Top 10 in 10. Each week, we scan the horizon to bring you the most important developments shaping the prophetic landscape. Join us next week as we continue watching the signs Scripture said would come. Remember to like, share, subscribe, and click the bell so you don't miss a beat. Until next time, stay in the Word, keep your eyes on Jesus, and God bless you all. Watchwoman, signing out.